In this video, I'm going to show you how you can mix some of the Nunn Design resin with Jacquard PearlEx powder to create fun pieces like this. When you put a piece of plastic down on your work surface, you'll need some Q-tips and a couple of Nunn Design bezels. In the first step, we're going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol to clean the bezels to remove any of the dirt that might be on there before we put the resin in there. So take the lid off and put your Q-tip inside of here and get it nice and wet. Placed a little bit of packing tape over the surface of a couple of business cards. I do this prior to mixing my resin, and so if there's any overflow in the resin, it makes it super easy to clean it up. Next, we're going to mix the Nunn Design resin, the part A and the part B. So I'll need my resin, I'll need a mixing cup, I will need a mixing stir stick, and some gloves. I also like to place down on my work surface a Ziploc bag. I just have a little piece of plastic that I like to place down, so if I have any overflow, it'll go right on that. And then I also will need to have some sort of timer so that I can time the amount of time it takes to stir the resin. So we're going to start to mix the resin, working first with the part A. We're going to mix it, pour it into the cup to the 1 tablespoon. You have to do a 1-to-1, and it has to be exactly 1 tablespoon of part A first, and then you'll do a second pour with part B up to the 2 tablespoon. So I put this level onto my work surface, open up the resin, and then I'm going to get down right next to eye level so that I can see very clearly when I've hit that 1 tablespoon mark. So I'm pouring, pouring, pouring. And then right when I start to get to that 1 tablespoon, I'm leveling out the bottle and it slows down the flow. And then I wait till I get right there, and when I get to that mark, I twist the lid and ended that flow, and I'm right at that line. So if I have any excess resin on my container, I can just use a wet wipe and clean that off of the lid, and then put the lid back onto the container. And now I'm ready to use the second part B. So this goes into the cup, filling it to the 2 tablespoons. So again, I'm down at eye level, I'm pouring, pouring, pouring. And when I hit that, or close to, I'll slightly change the flow, so it's just a little bit slower, and eke it up there. And then right when I get to that mark, I twist the bottle, double check, and I'm right at that spot. Take a different section of my wet wipe and wipe away that surface if there was any overflow before I put the lid on. And then you put the lid back on. And now those are ready to go for the next time. Then I have set a timer, and for 2 minutes I'm going to stir the resin. So I like to hold the base of the resin and then slowly start to stir. And you are going to do this for a full 2 minutes. And stop every now and then and scrape the side walls of the container, and then scrape the stir stick into the resin. and continue. So you'll do this for a full 2 minutes, and the resin will then be mixed and you won't have any marbling of the two parts. After 2 minutes, we'll double check to see that the resin is all scraped into the side, into the container. And I actually have a little bit of resin that's spilled over the side. So if that's the case, you can just get a wet wipe and clean up your surface. I have a little bit on this edge here when I was scraping that. So you can wipe your cup down. And now you're ready to colorize the resin. Once you mix your resin, you can go ahead and apply some of the Jacquard PearlEx Powders right into the mixed resin and stir it, and then it'll colorize the resin. I'm just going to start with just a little bit less, about that much. Just kind of tap it in there, and this resin is getting really thick because it's been sitting for a while. And then I can just mix this up and stir in the Jacquard PearlEx powder, and it'll completely colorize my batch of resin. Beautiful PearlEx like color. You can see how it's kind of swirling together, and it just makes a really beautiful color. So now we're ready to add this mixture into our bezels. Using a little drizzle stick, you can just pick up PearlEx powder and drizzle it right into the base of the bezel. So once I have enough just right in the base, I'm going to stop for a moment before I get it too domed. And I'm going to use a couple of toothpicks. So I have 2 toothpicks, and I can move this around very easily. I'm coming along these edges over here on the base of the bezel so that I can dislodge any air bubbles that might be trapped down in there. Now that I have that in there, I can go ahead and drizzle a little more of my, stuck my finger in there, nice. A little bit of colorized resin in there. I'm pouring a little more of the colorized resin in, and then with my toothpick I can just come in and pull it over to the side edges of the bezel. So you can see why I like to use these cards. I can easily move this around. And you just pull it over to those side edges. And this resin was starting to get a little bit thick right when I even poured in the powder, but kind of swirl it around. And I'm going to double check to see if I have any air bubbles in this resin. So I'm going to take it off camera, and I'm going to blow on it and dislodge any of those air bubbles. It's more of a hot breath, of a huff, and that'll make those air bubbles expand that are in there and pop. So that is how you make that, and then we're going to go ahead and let that cure. I'm going to do a second one, and this one I'm going to overflow. I'll show you how you clean it up if you have way too much overflow. Again, this is getting super thick now, but I just want to use up some more pieces, so I just want to show you. I'm going to put it into the base there first. I'm going to use my toothpick. Go in here and just agitate this base. Especially when the resin's getting really thick, it's easy for a lot of air to get trapped in here because it's not as easy for the air to go to the surface. So I'm coming down, and especially in this little tip here. All right, once we've kind of agitated, I'm gonna add in more resin and overflow this for us to see. How easy it is going to be for us to clean this up later. So just imagine I'm like pouring, 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 and then it just takes one side to go over. Let's get it to go over on this side here. See how that kind of creates a little puddle on the side. So we say, oh, bummer. Let's just let it sit and play its course now, and then I'll show you how you fix this. So the resin has cured on these pieces. I also made a fun little pair of earrings really quick just to show you how those look. And I want to show you how you can take the resin off of the side when you have overflow next. So go ahead and peel back the card, and the resin will just pop right off. And this is about 24 hours since I poured this. It's pretty firm. I'm using a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm just grabbing it on the base, and you just kind of peel back like this, and it'll just pop right off. That was pretty darn easy, wasn't it? So if you have overflows, don't worry about it. It's very easy to fix these and to clean them up. So just kind of let them go, let them cure, and then you'll be ready for the next step. This is a really fun look as is, but I'm going to use a little bit of steel wool because it's super easy to get these little pock marks when your resin is super, super thick, and that's what was the situation with my resin. It was really, really thick, and so the air is coming up to the surface, and it just it pops and just never fills in because the resin gets so thick. So to remove those pop marks, I'm going to create a look like this, which I absolutely love. I love this more dull look than the high gloss. So let me show you how to do this. For this next step, I'm going to put a piece of plastic down, and I also put some gloves on, and I'm using a 4/0 steel wool, and I have my pieces. So you just take the steel wool and you start to rub on it. And you can see instantly how it turns from a very shiny to a more matte look. So once you're finished rubbing them and getting the surface the way you want, just take a wet wipe and just clean out that residue from the pad, it gets all over the place. And I just take this and place the excess in the garbage. These are what I like to clean off your gloves before you take these off. It's much easier. And then remove the gloves. This one I'm gonna go back in and do another little bit. On this surface, you have a little bit of extra shinies, but I love all of those little dots in there. That's fun. And then you can go ahead and assemble it into a fun project.